This time on Captain Chaos's laboratory, we're going to be working on the Christmas Chocolatier Truffle Factory. There you go. It's got some small issues in shipping. This is loose. You can see it broke free. This fell out, which is the lights. According to the picture, there's supposed to be an elf sitting up here, but I didn't see him in the packaging. And this came in its original box, so I don't know where it disappeared to. Those are the physical things I can see just from unboxing it after its journey across state lines. So the problem with this is it does actually turn on. If you notice, it jerks. You can hear it. And it's all jerking in the same motion. So I'm going to assume there's a problem with the central drive. That there's probably a broken or chipped gear, or we just have a casting defect that's causing it to rub, because it's squeaking down here. This is jerking. These aren't. So this side isn't jerking. Keeping the volume off so you can hear me. This, the belt, and the top of the milk chocolate mixer, they're jerking. So whatever is the problem is on the central drive, or the main part, which is over here. This is a secondary part. It may have the same gear mechanism that feeds it, or it could be a separate motor. We'll find out when we open it up. And you can hear it. But turn on the sound, see what it sounds like. Kind of that 1950s-esque soundtrack. So the bottom does come off, and it might give us access to the gear mechanism, so we're going to start there. And if you don't have this piece or never seen it, it is plastic, which, like I mentioned a lot, people have their issues with. I particularly like it because it makes it easier to work on. But, you know, to each their own. There's 6 feet that you need to pop off to get to the screws. That's one. There's 2. There's 3. 4. 5. And the last one. 6. This is a standard 4.5 volt unit, so it doesn't take any special adapters. I don't know what else to tell you about it. Kind of reminds me a little bit, not much, of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the original. Only for how strange it is with the exposed mixing bowls and the elves tipping onto the cocoa pourer. But This doesn't provide us access to what we need to see. If it's like all the other large plastic pieces, we'll have to separate the house from the base. So I'm hoping the main gear mechanisms, or whatever the problem is in the bottom. But knowing Murphy, the problem will not be in the bottom. Okay. So here's the bottom. You have your main power board right here, which has your motor, your power coming in, which is this one right here in the middle. That's your motor. This is your light distribution board right here. Here's your on-off volume switch, and this guy at the bottom, which is gray and red, is your speaker. This has a higher quality speaker. It's an 8 ohm 2 watt, not the standard 8 ohm half watt plastic speaker. This one's more of a cardboard paper type speaker. I'm gonna tip it up so you can see the bottom. So there you go. We have the gear transfers under those white plates and the main hub assembly under the gray, which means we cannot get to it from the bottom. But with the bottom exposed, I can plug it in and see if I can see any of these larger teeth gears having an issue and try and break down where my problem may lie. So, plug it back in. I don't believe anything is going to smack for rotation. Nope, we're good. All right, I am going to take off this left cover. I don't know if that's the problem, because this central drive is split. So the power's here underneath the rotating disc with the people carrying the ingredients. Then it splits, and the farther away it gets, the smoother it is. But up close, right in this area, is where the problem is. So before I peel the building off, let's unscrew this white plate and see if maybe there's a broken something stuck inside the teeth, like plastic casting or a broken tooth. So this white plate that holds everything in alignment only has 4 screws, and they're the same screws that hold the bottom one. There's the plate. Now I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gears. So there you go. They all look good. Like I said, these bigger gears, or I mentioned in the past, are much harder to break because there's a lot more mass to them. Have to pull this one out to check the nose, which is the inner or the step. I'm surprised. Normally they really lubricate these to an excess, and this isn't really that oily. So maybe they're learning not to put so much gunk on these. That's what burns them out. Alright, so it looks like we are going to have to access up in here, and all the screws of course come from the top down. Why wouldn't they? So I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this plate. There we go. You have to get all those pins lined up. That's always the hard part. They're all lined up. At least this is nice if you want to try and diagnose your failure if it's not powering on, which is probably a bad motor. You can just take the 6 screws out of the bottom, unplug the motor, See if that solves your power issue, or if you want to unplug your speaker because it's staticky and crackling, you just want it to light up and do motion. That's one of the nice things about the newer styles, is they have the Molex connectors, which allow you to unplug and replug as necessary. Making sure nothing's going to interfere. I'm only going to put a couple screws in the bottom just to hold the bottom in place so I can tip this back onto its top. Or sorry, tip it back onto its bottom so I can access the top. So, from looking at the bottom, get these out of the way. Looking at the bottom, the motor is underneath this. Then this has teeth on the inside and out. The inside teeth make the character spin. The outside teeth then drive these. So, you have a gear with a shaft drive that goes up to this. You have gears with a shaft drive, which is obvious. You can see the shaft that goes up to this. And then you just have gears that go to here, which then has a shaft and another set of gears up here, because these spin in opposite directions. So if these are spinning left, that's spinning right. So what it does is it has a gear that goes up top, and then it drives another gear. So it's got a ring gear, and it's spinning the opposite direction. So we need to get inside. Now looking at this house, it has notches and fingers around the base. We'll see if I can get a better shot for y'all. So we have one there, and then there's a notch here, and a notch here. Don't get me wrong, it is glued down. See that kind of a burnt mustard yellow color at the base? That's the glue. So it is glued and clipped. And if this is like, oh, some of the other Christmas ones, or the Hideous Harry Toy Factory, or the Horde Hotel, which is probably somewhat based off of this pattern, it should lift, once it's broke free of the glue, it should lift straight up. The Horde Hotel had the staircase, and it was always known. That's why I took mine apart. The staircase was jerky. And it also has the rotating key. It's basically the same, except that the Horde Hotel has a fascia, while this you can stick your hand straight through. Lemax uses basically the same basic setup or mold for their Christmas and Halloween. They just changed the paint job and a few touches here and there, but they're very similar. So this base mechanism you might see on Halloween pieces lowers costs. They're not the only ones that do it. Fire up the heat. I'm going to start at a lower temperature, which is as low as my machine goes, which is 100 Celsius. And I'm just going to start on the back. Because there's no clips in the back, So it probably breaks free and tips a little, then lifts off. I could be wrong. I won't know until we do this. Another reason I'm starting at a lower temperature is it's plastic. If you're at a high temperature, you risk melting your plastic. Because the glue is going to melt at a higher temperature than the plastic. So all I want to do is get the glue pliable, hopefully just enough to break it free of its plastic base. Get out some spudgers. Trying to find a place where I can get a spudger in there. These have a tapered tip, which is thinner, so I might be able to get under the lip a little better. Start breaking this glue. Sorry, there's just some fuzz sitting up on there. I didn't want it falling inside. See, this is pointier. There we go. There's a spot I could get under. Of course, these guys are in my way. Black pipe is also glued top and bottom. Let me see if I can get it to separate. There we go. Got the pipe to separate from its glue. Probably gonna have to do a double spudger because I need to be here to try and do that. I don't want to break the characters off unless they absolutely have to come off. So the silver part's now removed. So now I notice the glue here is super thick. I don't want to try and break it without, because I might break the plastic. So I'm now going to heat from here over. I'm probably going to turn it up a hair just to help. So I'm going to bump it up to 125 because this has got a thick glue blob. I'm also using a fatter nozzle than I normally do. It's from the last project. So it dissipates the heat. It's not as confined of an area. This is the glue, basically scraping it out so I can get underneath it. Because it's kind of just pooled up here in the corner. Alright, I think I got most of the glue out. Alright, I ain't gonna lie, whatever they use for glue, this one really is good. There we go. It's just so thick right here. It's really strong. Starting to separate. It's one of the nice things about having a spudger kit. You can use multiple spudgers to help separate. Trying to find one that has a narrower tip. Because of course they put the two narrow tips on the same one. And I don't want to use a plastic spudger because I'll just break it. Like that. Alright, so it looks like I'm going to have to fix the back of the house because the plastic just cracked. That's what I was afraid of. So the resin glue is so thick, it is repairable, and I will repair it. I'm going to set it off to the side so I don't lose the pieces. But with the opening, you might be able to get a little heat on the inside. This is why Lemax tells you you're not supposed to fix these. There's a lot of glue on this side too. There's a big old glob. Love when they do that. Once I glue it in, if there's any paint chipped, I have paints that I use to try and color match. So, color match it if necessary. The thing about plastic is it usually doesn't splinter. Not like porcelain or resin. Let's see if I can maybe trim some of this with the X-Acto. I've been asked why I don't do any of these live, and that's because of this. This is the part that takes forever, and everybody would get bored and then leave. So. This is the glue. There's some packages right here. They're probably going to have to come off because there's a big glob of glue in the corner that's directly behind a stack of cream, nuts, and sprinkles. Flexing the house on the plastic, I can see that this center section is going to stay. Looks like the chimney is going to come out of the center. Once I break this glue and the back glue, it should technically come off. I don't think the tree is glued. The house, no, the tree's not. So I'm going to continue to work on this because I've been working on it now for almost 30 minutes, about 25 of it. God knows how much longer it's going to take. So as soon as I get this separated, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Alright, so I had to bump the heat up to 200 and then just work my way around it carefully. Using two spudgers. Basically, I poked a hole with this one, then I pulled it out, then I put this one in its place, then I poked a hole with this one again, and I just kept going all the way around. And no, you do not have to remove the packages. Luckily, even though there is glue on the back side of the package, on this one, there's no glue on the house. But you do have to heat this corner, because there is a glob of glue. I mean, there's just a ton right here in this corner. There's some of it I just peeled off. So, and when I opened it up, I found a little elf from the roof inside here. He was behind this bar, which is the bar that feeds this. So, no, that's not the reason why it's all jerky. See, still jerky. So, I was like, damn, that wasn't the problem. That would have been, you know, so much nicer. So I am going to turn this sideways, and I'm going to check here. Because like on the Horde Hotel, the jumpiness was caused by the mechanism up here. And this one may be the same problem. It's the same exact mechanism. So, move the sharp object away from the arm. And let's put the ball and all that over there. So I'm going to unscrew the mechanism, which is just held in with two screws. And then we're going to turn it on and see if it works without the jumpiness. So if you have this piece, you can see the glue, resin, whatever they want to call it, all the way around. You can even see where they missed it right here, where it's clear and there's no... It never adhered to anything. It is glued behind the tree, but it is not glued to the tree. So that was the least hardest, believe it or not. Once I got the house, I just tipped it, moved it back a little, called walking or worrying it, and got it to break free. So I was actually surprised that that was the easiest part of this whole endeavor, since the big flat area decided to crack. Alright, so this one is a little different. It's the same mechanism, but they reinforced it. So I got the bar off, which you see is right there. Well, I put it right over there. Normally at that point you could slide the shaft up and the drive shaft that drives the belt is removed from the drive circuit or drive mechanism. They put some plastic clips on top so it sandwiches the belt, the drive shaft, so it can't walk. You might have learned that from previous ones where they would walk and that's what would cause the gear to crack. So this one's going to be a little harder to remove from the system in the sense that they reinforced it. So that's a positive. So let's see if we can just remove this whole thing. So there's 1, 2, it looks like 3 clips that hold this in place. And I'm sure they probably glued it. I doubt they just use clips. Let's get on my X-ray specs here. And that one's small enough. So there's a clip on the inside, and then there's 2 clips on the back side. And yeah, there's glue in this front leg, probably when they glued this and they missed. So let's see if I can, there we go, get it to break free. There we go. Now, what is it going to take to get the drive out since they changed the design? pull the 14 tooth gear off, and then that slides right up. So let's try it again. Hey, look, it's smooth. No jerkiness. Just like the Horde Hotel, that belt system is the problem. So now we need to find out why it's causing it. So I'll even put a load on it. Oh, no. Let's put a load on this one. So, okay. So it's in this shaft. Let's just check the belt. Now the belt just has one gear on the outside, which is driven. It's a ring and pinion, which then drives a small gear on the inside, which drives this gear right here. And then, of course, it's on a pulley and then just rotates around. So I'm just going to turn this to see if it's smooth and if I see any cracks in these other gears. So I'm going to use, like I said, my X-ray specs here. I know the belt's going backwards. It doesn't matter. I'm not checking it for direction. I'm checking it for stress. Those actually look like real Hershey's Kisses stacked on top, or the Toll House mini chocolates. That's pretty cool. I'm going to have to say, as much as Lemax breaks, their fine details is very nice. It has a tensioner, a slip tensioner, which keeps tension on the belt so the belt's not all sloppy. Normally their slip tensioners have a wheel. It does. Okay, it's on the back side. Their slip tensioners are nice. They do a good job. I actually like it better than the Department 56 style tensioner they use on their belts. So each company has their own pros and cons. Alright, so that's fine. And if I load these shafts, meaning I try and stop them with my fingers, there's nothing. You can hear nothing, except I'm putting more stress on the motor. I can hear the motor. But if I put stress on this shaft, so that's why I didn't want to screw the bottom out completely, because now I need to take the bottom back off, and since this has been disconnected, pull it out and see what's going on. Now, when we put this back together, just so you know, just like the Horde Hotel, lining all these things up, kind of a pain in the butt. But it's just part of the process. Apparently the glue broke on the elf that sits on the bar. Probably from the heat. I didn't smack it with anything. Is that I had to raise the temperature up to 200 degrees centigrade, which is like 400 and something Fahrenheit. So that's pretty toasty. Those who wonder what I do when I pause the camera and I work on this, I just turn on some music and sit here and play with it until it breaks apart. This is why this summer I'm moving to a different place to have a bigger area so I can actually spread the pieces out and not have them interfere with each other. I started the room demolition this past couple days. The room is basically just concrete floor and 4 walls. The idler gear, and I think this is the shaft gear right here. You see nothing wrong with that. Now this is the big gear that it's attached to, and I already took this out and checked it. So why is it giving me grief? I think I know why. Let me test my hypothesis. I think this is a manufacturing issue. Should be fixable. Give me just a second here to get this idler back in. And if this is the case, and this is the problem that I'm thinking it is, and I'll tell you in just a second, you technically don't have to take the top off. So I'm going to put the plate back on so I can turn it on. There's that shaft right there. Yes, that's the issue. It's a floating gear. It's got no assistance to keep it stabilized, so it's walking. I'm going to try and show you as best as I can, since I have less to hold on to flip this thing upside down. So I'm going to put this plate back on one more time. Gonna move my chair so I can stand up a little better. So here's the plate put in. Here's the drive gear. You notice how it's just hanging out doing nothing? See that wobble? I don't know if you can actually. Let's try this. That's a little better. There's the drive gear, the gear that drives the ramp. So if this is all screwed down and nice and tight, there's nothing holding this gear. So it's kicking at an angle and jumping teeth. So I'm going to demonstrate. First thing I'm going to do is set this down carefully. I need to put a couple screws in this white plate because once I turn it on, the torque of the motor is going to lift it all off, and then all the other gears will go out of alignment. So I'm going to put a couple of screws in here to hold this plate. I'm putting the bottom two screws in because that's where I'm going to be applying torque, and I don't want the plate to flex. Alright, so turn it on. So you see it's spinning. Now in a perfect world, it would just keep spinning, but what's happening is, see, if I apply any torque, it wobbles. See, can I zoom this thing in? Somewhere? Wrong way. So under no load, perfect. Put a load on it. You see how much is moving? See the deflection? What it's supposed to do is when that's clipped in, it's supposed to put a little tension on the shaft. So now if I put stress on it, which I'm pushing, I'm actually bending the shaft. It's not jumping out of place. But if that belt is not perfectly aligned, I'm not even holding it. I'm just using the tip of my finger and pressing on it. That's just me pressing straight down. And I'm not talking a lot of tension. I'm just enough to keep the shaft centered and stop wobbling. You can hear it. So, that is the problem. Now, the solution. And that's what that is for. That is the... Well, I guess I should zoom out. You can see what I'm pointing at. Always do that wrong way. Right there. So this white C-clip, this plastic pressure ring, is got a little piece that sticks in here that's supposed to stop this from doing this. Because what's happening is this, if it's not absolutely straight, is going to cause this to kick out. And then it's going to clack, 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 clack. So, there's a couple of ways we can try and fix this. First, we can try and realign this. Make sure it's centered. Not just use the 3 clips. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That little step. And glue it in hard glue so it can't walk. Because if this has any deflection, you can see how loose this shaft is. You can see this one's much tighter. This one's slightly looser because the bushing isn't as tight as I think it should be, but also it's much longer. So the higher something is, the more leverage you can put on it with less force, therefore it flexes more. So we can try that. So that and that are supposed to keep this shaft completely straight, which it is not doing, of course. If we can't hard mount this to where it keeps that shaft in a straight or slightly canted backwards, meaning away from the front, then we can put something on the bottom to help center the shaft, which would be trying to manufacture or fabric cobble one of these clips for the bottom, because it's got the same post but there's no clip on it. Or it could be making a plate, kind of like I had to do when I damaged a plate for the gooey gumdrop factory from Department 56. And make a plate for it that's going to keep it more centered. Let's see. Bushing's not going to help too much. A pressure bushing would, but a standard bushing won't. Pressure bushing is because, if I don't know if you can see in the camera, there's a little, it's shaped like this with a little thing right here, and that's pushing the shaft, this piece, and this is just holding it in place. Those aren't very common. It's not like I can just go to the store and buy one, but that's why I said fabric cobble. So let's see what we can do to rectify this clacking issue. So if you have this piece, or the Horde Hotel, or one of the other ones that have this slanted belt drive, maybe we can figure out a solution for it. So first, let's try and get these in. Yeah, just resting it back into its holes, it's leaning this way, which means that the shaft isn't going to engage. We need it to lean back. So technically, to fix this, you might literally have to disassemble it like I did, and try not to crack the plastic like I did. Now when I opened this up, only 2 of the 3 fingers were engaged. This finger wasn't connected, and I can see why. It doesn't fit. So that's why it's kicked forward. The manufacturing of this, it doesn't fit in here. So they put a dab of glue, which is why there's a spot right there. And that dab of glue was holding it forward. So let's try cleaning this up a little. Which is going to be kind of a pain. I don't feel like unplugging all the wires and then trying to remember where they go or marking them all. So let's see if we can first remove the glue. Because I need... Or what they did is they put the glue in thinking it would flatten, and instead of it flattening, it just pushed it forward. So your piece may not have this problem if you have this specific piece. I'm just gonna try and clean off underneath here. There's some glue on the inside. There we go. Now let's see if this fits better. It does fit better, but it still doesn't fit right. So this thing is all the way down. The front one engages, the one on the inside engages. This back one is off by 1/16 of an inch. Like, no joke. That's why this thing is kicked so far. That's why it's clacking. So this is a little bit on the manufacturing side. So I need to figure out what we need to shave or adjust to get this back clip, because I have it flush to engage this back clip, of course. So what do we need to do? Make sure there's no residue on this, which there is. Just gonna, if this is the same problem, if you have this piece with the same problem, you're just gonna have to keep doing small tweaks until you can get it to line up. There we go. Just got that one to line up. So now let's get the other ones to line up. That's two. Of course, this cocoa guy's in my way. There we go. I can't see the third clip because the guy carrying the cocoa is blocking my view. Damn it, man. Can't you see I'm trying to work here? Sorry. There. That is way more solid. All three are engaged. I can lift it with it. It's kicked back a slight. So using this as a straight, this track is now canted backwards, which is the only way you can provide positive pressure. So let's press this 14 tooth back on. I'm just going to quickly examine it to make sure it's not fractured. It shouldn't be. It's not. And we're going to put the ring gear back in. It slid out. There we go. Beautiful. See if it works. Look at that. No more clack, 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 and all that other bullcrap. What I am going to do, just to prevent this from doing it again, but we want to make sure it's still repairable, I am going to put a bead of hot glue on the back edge and on this column here, this inner one, the one closest to the front. Also, that screw is coming out. I just noticed that. That screw is not in all the way. Like I said, I think this was just a manufacturing defect. This was built on a Friday or a Monday or something. I have no idea, but man, the alignments are screwed up, that's all. And there's some debris in the track, probably from me shaving the glue. So let's clean that out. Like that. Now let's fire it up again. Beautiful. So, if you have this piece and you're having the clacking sound, just like on the Horde Hotel, the Haunted Horde Hotel from the Spooky Town version, it's going to be this center track. I don't know why, but it always is. I think it's just too much stress on that bar because they don't reinforce the bottom. Now, if that bottom had a plate with a standoff hole where the gear couldn't move, wouldn't have the problem. But because that gear can walk and the pressure bushing isn't putting enough pressure on it, that's probably going to be a problem. So I'm going to fire up the glue gun. We're going to get this glued in, and then I'm going to glue this in while it's out. The broken pieces are right there. And then, of course, we'll set it back on, make the alignments, glue in the lights, glue the ball on, glue this guy on, glue everything that's got to be glued back on. But if this piece has a problem and it's not in the bottom mechanism and something up here has failed, you still have to remove this house because you got two screws right here. You got the clips in the front so this piece can separate. If you want to remove the top, because this top is fully removable, you got two screws right here. And then you have probably three screws, one here, and I bet you there's one under this which is glued on. There may not be, I could be wrong. And then this whole top piece will come off and you can get to the gear inside, clean it out, relubricate it if necessary. The wires that go inside here are hot glued to the back, just so you're aware. Just like in here, they're hot glued right there, and then this guy is glued all along the back, so it doesn't interfere with any of the moving parts. So on this piece, especially if you remove it and take it apart, make sure that you glue. And then make sure nothing interferes with this exposed drive mechanism in the back, and none of these wires get caught on the chunks of chocolate that go in a circle, because then you're just going to bind up the mechanism and or rip out your LED lighting. So I'm going to stop it again because I'm sure you all know how to glue things together. You don't have to watch me wait for the glue to harden and the glue to heat up and all that other good stuff. So just to recap, I'm going to run a bead of glue across the back. I'm going to put a bead of glue right here on this piece. I'm not going to put any on the front, and the reason being is this would interfere with it, because this gets glued behind the tree. It's up to you if you want to glue it behind the tree or not when you reassemble. If you put a bead of glue here, I would probably use something breakable like hot glue, but you don't have to. Most cases you don't have to glue this back down to the center. There's enough surface area around the whole thing to hold it. And then this, when this gets glued on, has to be glued with something stronger than hot glue. So I've mentioned it before and I'll keep mentioning it. I use this to glue it. It has a 24-hour setup, so once it's set and compressed and it's aligned and everything works, there's no binding, then you have to let it sit for a day before you move it. But it'll be there almost forever. And you think this stuff's hard, whew, that stuff's even harder. But you can crack this stuff with heat. And it normally won't do this, where it chips the base. Also, when you take this apart, even though I started right here because there was a gap, as you can see, there is no glue. You can see the flat. And then you see over in here, I'll move it up. So this is where the glue was, and this is where they missed. That's why I was able to get the spudger under here and start lifting here to separate. But you can see how thick the glue gets here, and then there's a big blob of it in the corner, which I slowly cut out, and that's why it broke there. It's because there's so much surface area, and they had really good adhesion. So, but you can see where I started, and this is why I started, is because their glue went on the inside and completely missed the plastic. And then this pipe has a small dab of glue right here, not on the bottom, but on this side plate, because this pipe actually didn't even touch the bottom. It had enough room to stick my spudger underneath it. So yours would probably be the same way. Probably going to be glued to the plastic, the vertical wall, not the horizontal base. So there you go. That is how you take it apart, and in this case fix the chattering, which was caused by the drive conveyor belt due to the drive mechanism not being secured, due to them not actually installing it square with its slight cant, so it puts pressure on the shaft, and they didn't put the screw in all the way. So eventually that screw would have walked out and then probably fallen into this hole, eventually, vibration, got wound up in the gears, broke everything. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But anyhow, we'll be back in a few once this is all glued back together and it's all nice and tight. And we'll do one last check before it's permanent, and we should be good. Okay, it's back together. There we go. Turn off the light so you can see it in the low light. It's a very well lit piece. These lights right here that were out when I got it, you might have to remove them to help line up the shaft in here. Getting this shaft and this shaft to drop in at the same time, not very easy. Took probably about 10 minutes of it trying. I get one in, not the other, or vice versa, and then finally they both dropped. You also might have to rotate the sign and the steering handle to allow it to drop in, because it's a square shaft. Once it's in, it drops right on for you. And then all you got to do is any final adjustments to make sure that the characters don't smack the doorways when you recenter this. So, glued back on, glued on, glued on, glued on. So all the little pieces that fell off are now glued back on. The bottom's on. That crossbar that was on the shaft has been screwed in. Everything's been put back the way it was supposed to be. So I'm going to turn the light back on. Actually, turn the music up for a second. Give you a little side's dark because there's no lights. This side has a light because there's an elf in the window with the crane, and of course the doorway. Turn the volume down, and lights coming back, and I'm going to do a little bit more touch up on it, but there's the chip. I'm going to try and color match the tan or cream colored base a little, and then we should be good. So, just to show that sometimes it does happen where you can try your hardest not to damage something, and unfortunately things do break. But it came in as a clacking gonna fail piece is gonna snap a gear on this belt drive right there to now a fully functional unit with all the pieces put back on. So that way it's back to the way it would have been from the factory. Just readjusting the light. I realized I was pointing too close to the building. Can't read the Truffle factory sign. But that's it. It's kind of a more difficult one because you have to separate the whole base. If it's something on the drive belt mechanism causing a problem, you can see maybe the shine right there from the resin. Now I do it slightly different. I don't run a bead the entire width of the plastic. I just run on the outside edge and let it ooze out, because this way you can actually grind or chip this stuff off, and then you only have to break the outer lip of the house off, not the entire flat surface. And the reason I do that is it's going to break. It's going to break again. Now all I did on this was fix the pressure on the belt gear drive assembly, but the motor's going to burn out eventually. Belt's going to snap. Not this belt, but the drive belt. You're probably going to break a gear as this gets older. So as it gets older, I want to make sure that if it needs another repair, whether somebody else does it or myself, it's slightly easier in the sense that you can chisel this off with a sharp chisel style X-Acto blade, or a blade screwdriver, or a knife, or a chisel, and then you can get a spudger under there and pop it free. So, and I didn't glue the front here or here behind the tree. I just glued from the edge of the pipe all the way around to the packages. So I didn't even glue this corner because, again, we want to make sure it's repairable in the future if it ever needs to be worked on again. So, but there it is. The Lemax Chocolatier Truffle factory. How to dismantle it, inspect it, fix it. Hopefully you don't break yours. But if you chip the plastic, try and get the pieces and glue them back in. I used, when I glued it in, just to make sure it hardened correctly, I used painter's tape to hold the chips in alignment as much as possible. So that way I had my fingers free. And I know one piece shifted when I glued a house on, which is this back piece right there. So I will touch up the white that's exposed from the white plastic. But when I glued the house down, the glue apparently hadn't fully cured and it kicked out. So, or it kicked out when this glue expanded, because this resin glue does expand a little. Not a lot, just a little. So, but anyhow, thanks for watching. Till the next repair, have a good one.